ITV Digital will cease all its pay TV services at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and lay off more than 1,000 workers. The free-to-air services offered by the BBC and ITV will continue to air for the time being.
The administrators have surrendered ITV Digital's licences back to the regulator, the Independent Television Commission. They'll be re-advertised tomorrow, with bids from prospective new operators invited within 6 weeks.
A curt message on the web page tonight. It spells potential disaster for more than 1,000 workers in call centres and nationwide football league clubs. The decision to cease the service had been taken with regret, but a statement said there was no appetite in the market for the preservation of the business as a going concern. There's now a huge challenge to find a new operator. Workers are furious, so are the players.
What we've seen in reality is a lot of lower division clubs as a last resort have now had to go into administration in order to survive. The Football League doesn't do very well compared to the Premier League, and it's making that gap ever wider than ever. But for the lower division clubs, you know, it's even less, and they would get probably $250,000 maximum in Division 3, $500,000 maximum in Division 2. But that sort of money can mean the difference between survival or total extinction.
The switch off is an ignominious end to the service which had hoped to challenge Sky's dominance of digital TV when it launched in November 1998. It leaves government plans to switch off analogue signals and concentrate solely on digital in the near future in disarray.
It's a sad day, and I much regret the loss of jobs particularly, but I think we've seen this, the writing's been on the wall for several days now. I think rather than spend a lot of time trying to blame people for what's gone wrong so far, we need to look ahead. How can we get someone to come in and take over where ITV Digital left off?
What's left now are the terrestrial digital network, the goodwill of remaining subscribers, and set-top boxes that haven't been bought by viewers, and ITV's ad gimmick, a knitted monkey. ITV Digital was put into administration in March after failing to reach settlement with the Football League over outstanding payments on a £315 million deal to show matches. The league stands way down the list of those owed money, but believes someone else will step in.
We'll be looking for a new TV partner for next season and beyond. So we're always going to get some money for our right.
Union leaders representing 1,300 workers said they were furious that the news had been leaked before they were told. Tim Friend, Sky News.
But it looked like it was going to happen. It's now disintegrating before our very eyes. I mean, where does it leave all the players? Where does it leave the viewers? Where does it leave the people who work for ITV Digital? Where does it leave digital terrestrial television?
Yeah, lots of questions. It's a peculiarly British little tragedy, this, isn't it, really? A tale of marketing that went wrong, a tale of equipment that didn't actually deliver. And a lot of politics around the outside of it, getting involved in something which after all just is a commercial exercise, and people did not want that particular commercial exercise. So where does it leave the Football League? I think it leaves the Football League in a lot of deep water, quite honestly, and they will have to probably go back and renegotiate the fees that their players require and so on. Whether anybody would want to pick it up, well, there's a signal from the ITC and this slightly more flexible licence being offered, and we'll know all about that. We'll get the results of that on June the 12th. And I would say, in as much as anything, is that's a come-on from the ITC for somebody to come in and do it. But whoever does come in, I mean, it's pretty obvious that you've got to have very, very, very deep pockets to get involved in this, and much deeper than Granada and Carlton were willing to.
Indeed, a bad day all round, but clearly some companies, just to pick up on that last point, are going to be acting very tactically and have been acting tactically over the last few weeks and months. Who might move in for the rich pickings then?
Most of the people whom you would, the big ones you would imagine probably won't, because they have their media problems of their own. I mean, there's been lots of talk about Sky B and the BBC doing something joint, and that doesn't look as though it's going to go off the ground, but one never knows about these things. But as far as the Kirsches of this world and the other media conglomerates, probably not, certainly not Telewest and certainly not NTL, because they have their own debt problems. What could you pick up out of it? Well, I think the subscriber base, I mean, has shrunk, as I understand it, to about 800,000, and as we've been saying all afternoon, they aren't big payers. This attempt to bring digital television to Middle England has has failed, and in a sense it points to another truism about the television industry now, that television companies aren't successful ones are not television companies anymore. Sky B is not a television company; it's a much bigger entity than that.
But it's a utility, isn't it?
Almost, yeah, almost, and that's the difference. And this is a clear example of something which was offered to people, and they said, no, thank you, or not enough.
Or not in that form.
Or not in that form, yeah. So hence, maybe the new flexibility in the ITC licence may bring more people in. But the big question, I mean, never mind the television aspect, I think it's the football. I mean, that's it's going to be the big thing, and that's where one would expect political pressure to come.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear. And I think I may have said that it was the pay TV switch off at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's actually 7 a.m.
It is definitely 7 o'clock.
You were just reminding me there, 7 a.m. in the morning, the pay TV channels will go off on ITV Digital. Michael, thanks a lot.
Let's get more now from the Financial Times media correspondent Aisling O'Connor. Aisling, any White Knights cavalry there ready to ride to the rescue on the horizon?
There don't look to be many horses riding over the horizon. I don't expect that a buyer for ITV Digital will be found, and certainly it looks like the plug may be pulled tonight if the biggest pay TV supplier, biggest supplier of channels, that is British Sky Broadcasting, decides to pull its pay TV channels, and that will trigger a process whereby the licences will be handed back to the government, and it's game over, really. And
that's an automatic procedure that the ITC has to go through? The
ITC basically has to make a judgment call about whether the services are being provided for viewers, and clearly if Sky Sports, movies, all of these services that people are paying for are not being delivered, then they would probably take the view that the public's not being served, and therefore ITV Digital has breached the terms of its licence.
There are buyers out there, we're told, though, but obviously for the parts of the company that will be broken up on liquidation, they'll be cherry picking, as it's known. Now, could any of that actually lead to a television service being offered to the football clubs?
I'm not sure. I really think that there's been quite a lot of speculation about buyers that's proved to be really ill-founded, and we haven't seen anyone come out and say, "Look, I'm really interested in running this as a broadcast business."
But they're not going to say that really until they see what's available, are they?
Well, they're going to see what's available, and obviously none of them are particularly impressed about what's available. If the choice is buy the assets up front and pay maybe a premium to ITV Digital's administrators, who after all have to get the highest price for their creditors, or wait for the licences to get handed back to the government and then just apply for the licences, which are actually just the valuable bit.
Aisling, I'm just going to interrupt you because we're getting some reports, not confirmed, that in fact ITV Digital will close at midnight tonight, which will be really, I suppose, end of the story. Now, what happens in terms of the ITC and the various offers then that with things being made available on liquidation? Is that going to be a fairly quick, fast process?
I would expect that if ITV Digital fails to deliver pay TV services after midnight tonight, the business will be put into liquidation tomorrow.
Right.
The ITC will re-advertise the licences maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, and if they re-advertise them, they've got a 6-week process whereby they need to go through an auction to work out who is the sort of, there has to be a judgment about who's appropriate to run this as well, because some people would be deemed inappropriate.
Because of competition rules?
For competition rules, or perhaps they just haven't got the finances in place to, because this is going to take quite a lot of investment.
Yeah, the government though has indicated that it's very keen for digital television to continue, and obviously we've got a set up terrestrial system here that has worked. What could be done to actually continue that, perhaps on a free-to-air basis?
Well, I understand that. I mean, even if the pay TV services cease to be broadcast and ITV Digital collapses, you could still receive BBC One, ITV2, all these free services through the box. The box will still be activated. It'll just be the card, the smart card, that won't be. So the smart card gives you the pay TV services, the free-to-air you get through your aerial anyway. So those services will continue, and the government will then encourage the terrestrial broadcasters, led by the BBC, to come to some sort of arrangement whereby they can perhaps manage the transmission of these channels, which they're actually paying for at the moment, to ensure that to ensure that perhaps a cheaper box is brought into the market, and that they support it with channels of their own.
But obviously it's a long, hard road ahead. Aisling, for the moment, thank you very much indeed for bringing us your view there. Let's get the view now from Shadow Culture Secretary Tim Yeo. Mr. Yeo, it looks as if that white dot is disappearing in the centre of the screen rather rapidly.
Yes, it's a sad day, and I much regret the loss of jobs particularly, but I think we've seen this, the writing's been on the wall for several days now. I think rather than spend a lot of time trying to blame people for what's gone wrong so far, we need to look ahead. How can we get someone to come in and take over where ITV Digital left off?
That is a problem, of course, for the government with its blueprint for the future of British television, the digital blueprint, because they had wanted, of course, to switch off the analogue service and switch everyone to digital from 2006. But a lot of analysts have said perhaps there is no future for this terrestrial service where you get a digital signal through your existing aerial.
Well, I hope that's not the case. I think that digital terrestrial television is still capable of being a success. It's an essential element if we are to switch off the analogue signal, because by themselves satellite and cable can't reach the market penetration, or at least are unlikely to do so in sufficient numbers. What I think the government does need to do is learn the lessons of what's just happened and publish a timetable for strengthening the digital terrestrial signal so the quality of the picture is better. Secondly, inform the public about what the issues actually are. People are very confused about this.
Yeah, exactly. But isn't the lesson to be learned is that the marketplace has spoken and that they have failed on a commercial basis?
They have failed, but they had a very poor quality product compared with the quality of the product available on satellite or on cable. And I was an ITV Digital subscriber myself. I know how poor the picture is compared with the satellite picture I have in another home. And the fact is, you can't sell a poor quality television product to a sophisticated audience like the British audience. And so the first ingredient in solving this problem has to be improving the quality of the digital terrestrial signal. I think the second thing the government has to do very urgently is to publish its views about cross-media ownership rules so that potential successors to ITV Digital know where they stand if they apply now, as they would have to the Independent Television Commission for a licence.